So good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking time to join us. That picture, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, was a quote from Mike Tyson, because he kept on being asked by sports journalists, what's your plan? What's your plan for the next fight? Because everyone else spoke about their plans to try and beat him. And that was his answer every time. Everyone has a plan till they get punched in the face. The corona economy has been a massive punch in the face. There's not one business owner that I've spoken to, whether it be here in South Africa, in the US, in the UK, or in the EU, where we do a lot of this type of work, that didn't have a plan, and a good plan, a growth plan from the beginning of the year. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. But here's the thing. It is these people that win. This man, Buster Douglas, was an interim fight for Mike Tyson. And he was a filler more than anything else before Mike Tyson was preparing to fight Evander Holyfield. He came out of nowhere. He was a very mediocre, I do beg your pardon. He was a very, very mediocre a boxer in his own right. And in the 8th round, he got knocked down to the mat by Mike Tyson, almost completely out. But in the 10th round, he beat Mike Tyson. He was the first man ever to knock out Iron Mike Tyson. And the reason he managed is because after he had been knocked to the floor, he got up. Winners always get up. The corona has smacked us all in the face. Those who come out of it on the other side, and those who come out with profound, remarkable opportunities for growth in their businesses on the other side, are those who are getting ready to fight. I'm going to be talking to you about how you go about doing that, how you reset your business, how you rebuild it to reignite it in a very stormy economy. And let's accept this. Everything you did leading up to the pre-corona economy is not what you need to do post-corona, because the environment has fundamentally changed. And in that, your propositions, the way you work, the behavior of your clients and customers will change too. If you don't lead that change and you're left following it, or worse, not change from your old ways of doing things to this new way, whatever it might be, of doing things, you could get left behind. So let's take a view on the future, because we have to take a view on the future. And as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as an investor, of course, I hope for the best. I always hope for the best. But importantly, I prepare for the worst. And there's a wonderful benefit to doing that. Because if we take a horrible view, the worst possible view that we could on how long this corona economy will be around, and we build our businesses to sustain that, anything better than that view should yield very quick growth. So if we look towards June 2021, what I'm sharing with you over here is a graph that came out of the US. It's a forecast of how long they expect the corona economy to last. And in doing so, they argued that the first vaccines will be available more or less around October, November 20. So later this year, the end of the 3rd quarter, beginning of the 1st quarter this year. They believe that those vaccines will then be made available to those in need, so frontline workers and the elderly and the vulnerable. I think it's ambitious because classically vaccines take a year of human testing. In any event, they then think that as they move into their second wave of infections, which is their winter, our winter now approaching, a vaccine will be available broadly around April next year. That vaccine, if it is available in the US, the question is, how long will it take to be available globally and at an accessible level? Because all of us need it to prevent the rest of the world having the coronavirus attack again. Our country has taken a view to use three levels of analysis around what that means for us in our economy. What the government is looking at is the economic value of businesses, the economic stress caused by those businesses not being alive, and the transmission risk. And what that means, economic value is the contribution to the GDP of the country. So mining is important, the automotive industry is important, the food export industry is important. And we saw yesterday that food exports have now opened up again. Economic stress is really centered around those businesses that employ enormous numbers of people who without work would create tremendous stress right through the economy. It also looks at the role of a business in the deep supply chain. And I'm going to talk a little bit around that. And then we have transmission risk. And transmission risk is high alert. The government have also decided to close schools until August. Schools, high transmission risk. Online, physical casinos, massive transmission risk. Restaurants, in the normal way of doing things. Hair salons, your barber, high transmission risk. So what we can expect is for the next 24 months to have a series of stages with the economy opening and then closing, and opening and closing, much like a sea moving up the shore and down the shore. And this will be governed by the capacity of our health services to cope with the ill, the infected, and the risk that COVID provides to lives. To the extent that we have capacity in our healthcare system, the economy will open. To the extent that the capacity gets filled, they will draw back on the economy itself. That is the view we are certainly taking for the next 24 months, and that is the view against which we are going to build a battle plan. But before I continue, I've set up 2 polls, and I'd really appreciate to get an insight around your businesses. In broad terms, how big are you? How many people do you have? What is the risk that you believe you face in the next 24 months? Fantastic. Please take a minute or so just to look at the poll, complete it. It's completely anonymous, but it gives us a very good feel of how you want me to arrange the content and share the ideas that I'm so looking forward to delivering today. %52% of people have voted. Be wonderful if you can step it up a little bit. This is your webinar. I need to be sure that I'm talking to you as opposed to at you. Right, so I'm going to share some of the results because the results are quite interesting. 34% of businesses are doing less than 10 million a year. A second third are doing between 10 and 30, and the balance are doing over 120 million rand a year. So I'm going to stop the polling, and I am going to share the results for everyone's interest. Fantastic. Let's move on. I want to set a framework against which you can look at your business and not take it personally. Because what I find is working with business owners, very often, when I ask them about their businesses, they respond in a defensive manner around their businesses. If you think about it, the way that you've created your business really is an expression of the way you look at the world. It's an expression of you. It's an expression of your ideas. It's an expression of your dreams. It's an expression of your need in order to generate income. It's an expression of your hopes for wealth creation through the risks you've taken in starting a business. So I want to objectify businesses a little bit, because that objectification lends us all perspective. And perspective, especially in tough times, is really important. The way I'd like to do it is I'd like you to understand or imagine that building your business is very similar to sailing a ship, because they have a lot in common. In the first instance, a ship leaves from somewhere to go to a destination. That destination must be well defined. Irrespective of the storms we sail in, the waves we hit, and the winds we face, when you leave a port to go to a destination in the hope of offloading your cargo, in order to earn your income, revenue, and capital gain. In other words, the final sale of a business, the exit of your business. It's really important you define where that port is and why you're doing what you're doing. Then you need a good crew. A crew, if you look at this particular boat, I was fascinated as a kid by Jacques Cousteau. In fact, he was the guy who made me want to become a marine biologist for years and years and years, because he discovered the undersea. The Calypso, his ship, is very well known as well. It gives you a good sense of who the crew are, and the crew in any vessel are individuals who have got a very good understanding of what they need to do, when they need to do, and how they need to do it. And in a storm, this becomes especially important. You have an engine room and a bridge. The engine room down here, in other words, below decks, is responsible for propelling the vessel. It gives the vessel momentum. The bridge up here is responsible for directing the effort of the propulsion. That should always be facing your final destination. You need to navigate and resource. If we agree that we're leaving Durban Harbour to go to Hong Kong, now Hong Kong's a lot safer at the moment from a corona point of view than many other areas. But if we agree that that is our journey, we typically map out how long it'll take to get there, and it's about a 12-day journey. But the smart captain will take 14, 15 days of food, fuel, and water, because we always face unforeseen weather conditions. I think, as a business, we believe there is only one destination for every business owner, and that is to build their business into an asset of value. I'm going to be talking a lot around what that looks like and how it works. And again, I want to emphasize, when we set sail and we are going to that destination, irrespective of the sea and the conditions of the sea, which right now are very choppy and stormy, we adjust our direction, but we always aim at the same destination. The efforts you're going to be taking over the next 2 years to hold your businesses, to support your businesses, and most importantly, to grow your businesses, must take you to your final destination as a business owner. The starting point is to get control of yourself. All of us are in a state of shock, and I'm going to draw on the insights and wisdom of this lady down here. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross is an American-Swiss psychologist who spent her life managing grief. She is, in effect, the data version of Mother Teresa, and she spent many, many years with people who had lost loved ones. She was a bereavement counselor, and her objective was to understand the bereavement cycle in order to migrate people very quickly from a place of fear, anger, loss, and depression back into a positive frame of mind in order to have a positive life. What she developed was this curve. She said, when you face somebody who is close to you, a loved one, that is likely not to live because of a terminal illness or the result of an accident or whatever the circumstances are, the initial reaction is always one of denial, saying, no way, this is not going to happen. I won't accept it. As it becomes more and more evident that that person will pass on, frustration grows until you lose that loved one. And people then sit in a well of depression. She argued, in order to get people out of depression, you need to start exploring through experimentation a different life without that person. In that process, you eventually take a decision around what works and what doesn't work, and hopefully from there you integrate it into a new way of life and living and create meaning through that. It sounds dramatic, but for a lot of business owners out there, our businesses are as close to us as a loved one would be. We find our meaning in those businesses, we find community, we find value, we find our income in those businesses. For a lot of us out there, living a life without the business that we have strived to build is tantamount to losing something very, very close, meaningful, and valuable to us. What the corona economy has done, it's taken everybody through this curve. Whoever you're talking to, there's some people still in denial, saying, oh, it's not as bad as everyone says it is. the economy will open up in the next month or so, and we will revert back to normal. See this as an extended holiday, the lockdown of 5 weeks. We've survived over the December period, we'll survive over this forced holiday period. There are a lot of people who are incredibly frustrated still with it. That frustration is growing as well. It feels that government strategy is not fair. It feels that some people are winners and some people are losers, and it's simply not fair. There are an enormous number of people who are stuck in this well of depression. But then there are a slight few who have already begun to experiment, have taken a view on what they need to do, and are building their businesses up from the breakdown they experience in the early stages of the initial shock. Understand where you are in this curve. Importantly, understand where members of your family are in this curve. Understand where your team is in this curve. And use this curve to understand your customers and suppliers. Because if you don't recognize where people are at in this environment, on a personal level, and you talk to me about decision-making and experimentation when I'm still going through denial, can you see we will never ever hear or see each other? It's your job as a business owner, and therefore as the leader of your business, in all your engagements around your team, around your customers, and around your suppliers, beyond the commercial transaction, there's a human being. To the extent that you understand this curve, locate yourself in this curve, and understand them in relation to this curve, you will make that connection that could be the difference between your business winning or losing. I use truths to manage myself through that grief cycle. And truths are undeniable. And the reason truths are so important is because there's so much noise out there at the moment. There are thousands of experts all talking about the virus, and yet everyone agrees we don't know enough about it. Everyone is forecasting the economy, and yet it's a 1 in 100 year event. None of us have lived through it. Everyone is looking at what happened after the wars. They're looking at what happened after the 2008 credit crisis. That 2008 credit crisis was a financial crisis. It wasn't a crisis of human survival. They're fundamentally different. So hold on to absolute truths, because once you've taken a view on this corona economy, I'm going to share with you the final truth, the most important truth. The truth that if you hold on to it tightly, we'll see every single of you a day through the next 2 years be positively inspired through action, and more importantly, focused on business growth. So the first truth, you're born. The second, absolute undeniable truth, you will die. The third, you cannot change another person. I'm sure we've all tried. I certainly have. And I learned after many, many hard years, a person only changes when they decide to change. Your attempts to change a person by incentives, by threat, by persuasion, through love, through generosity, through fear, none of it works. The only thing that works is for that person, for themselves to decide they want to change. We've always lived in a world of great uncertainty. And as South Africans, we certainly know that. Look at the last 5 years, the last 7 years of what we endured under the Zuma administration. Every single Sunday night there was well, not every single Sunday night, but there were these cabinet reshuffles. Policies put in place to support sectors and industries were completely shattered and restarted. We've lived with Eskom on, off, unpredictable. We still don't know what our certainty is around the economy. And yet we have fought through this process, and we've developed a resilient muscle memory, a capability to work with uncertainty far stronger and better than certainly any of the clients I work with in the US, UK, and the EU. The is sacred. What is. Sitting here, standing here today, saying it could have been different, it should have been different, whether it be around our economy, that you and I have very little control over, whether it be around how the coronavirus is being dealt with, which you and I have very little control over, whether it be around what we should have done, could have done, and ought to have done in our businesses from yesterday back, which you and I can do very little about today. The is sacred to the extent that we get past that denial through the frustration and through that depression to say, what is, I now need to act with what is, as opposed to what should have been, could have been, and ought to have been. The only thing, think about it, that you have 100% control over is absolutely your attitude. Your attitude, whether you're aware of what it is or not, guides your actions and your behavior. And your actions and behavior, because that's what builds things and makes things happen, give you the result of your life. Whether it be your relationships, whether it be your business, whether it be how customers are working with you or how suppliers are working with you. The attitude you hold towards that thing is how the thing will emerge. If it's not working for you, the thing that you have 100% control over, your attitude, is what you can change to change your behaviors to get a different result. When we spoke about Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in that curve, and she was talking about experimentation, it's exactly what she meant. The attitude that says, I cannot live a life without that loved one who has now passed, leaves you in the well of depression. An attitude that says, my loved one has passed, I now need to find a different way of crafting meaning in my life. Different attitude, different behavior, the beginning of experimentation, new insight and new opportunity. So let's think about how we structure this. The first thing, and I'm going to do it in 3 bites, understand your business, build a strategy, and then the activities to bring that strategy to life. You need to understand your business, and you need to use a framework that will let you understand your clients too. Remember, we spoke about empathy. On a human level, we're using the Kubler-Ross curve. On a business transactional relationship level, this is what I'm going to be sharing with you. The starting point, always, let's remind ourselves, the destination we're sailing to is an asset of value. What is that? The first thing, it's a business that increases its capital value, its equity value. Think of it like buying a share on the stock exchange. You buy a share for 50 Rand, you hold it for 3 years, and you hope to sell it for 150 Rand or 300 Rand, whatever the case is. The difference between what you sell it for as opposed to what you paid for it is the capital value. You buy a share and you also look for income value. In other words, the dividend. If you buy a share for 50 Rand, over 3 years, you want at least 10 Rands worth of dividends coming out of that share, year 1, year 2, year 3. That's the free cash that your business generates. In our businesses, we refer to it as dividends. And then finally, you need to buy a share that is tradable. Because for me to sell a share, there needs to be a ready buyer in the market. And think about what a ready buyer looks for. A ready buyer in relation to your business says, I can see there's capital value in your business. That means everything you've done to date holds the potential of future capital growth too. I'm buying your business today to secure that future capital growth. The second thing, I'm buying your business because I can see that you have managed to generate dividends for the last 3, 4, 5 years, whatever the case may be. It says to me that I too can enjoy the benefit of dividends once I've acquired the business from you. And now, most importantly, I'm buying the business because it doesn't depend on you being there. If you are your business, as opposed to you having built your business into an asset, I can never buy that business from you. If I cannot buy the business from you, you have no asset. In effect, what you're selling me, should I buy your business, is a form of job that I would be buying. So let's be clear, from an auric point of view, from my point of view, the only voice I talk with is that of an asset. That's the destination. Now, what is the strategy we need to get through Corona? And what is the framework of action we need to take our businesses today where they are towards that destination. Understand your asset stack. This is absolutely crucial. The asset stack is everything that you have, that you've earned, you've gleaned, you've owned. Understand your asset stack, because if you understand your asset stack and you create a framework to do that, you can understand the same asset stack of an individual, of a business, of a competitor, of a supplier. It's a very useful way to simply, cleanly, and immediately see what's important and see what's not. If we look at the onion is the core. It's where the sweetness of the onion lies. And in that inner core, that's the part where the real flavor comes out. The second layer, the middle layer, is really where the burn is in the onion. The sweetness of the core and the second layer burn creates the flavor. The outer layer is what you can discard. So if you look at your business like an onion, the inner layer, you need to ask yourself, what is core and what is strategic? What is core and what is strategic? For example, I'm going to use the example of one of our clients. They're a business intelligence service that offers services into the industrial economy. If you think about what they do, they need to get data, slice and dice it, and then represent it in a very accessible, intelligent way for their clients. So what is core and strategic for them? From a skill point of view, they need people who can get data, slice and dice it, and they need people who can organize it and represent it in intelligent, beautifully represented visual images, so that the broader teams they're selling the data to within their clients can all understand and interpret it within the construct of their business. If you, from a human resource point of view, do not have the ability to get data, slice and dice it, and the ability to craft it into beautiful images for visual representation, you do not exist, period. Those two skills are fundamental to the existence of your business. Without those two skills, you have no ability to be in business and to provide service. If we look at that from the perspective of offices, do I need offices in order to deliver that? Are offices core and strategic to my purpose, to my existence? No, they're not. Absolutely not. Would the appropriate software be core and strategic? Yes. You need software that helps you do the slicing and dicing. You need software that helps you produce a beautiful representation of what that slicing and dicing has yielded. Those are the core aspects that are strategic to your existence and survival. That, in your business, you hold and you guard. It's where your intellectual property lies. In the next layer, that is what we refer to as non-core but strategic. So let's go back to it. If that's my business, do I need to have an in-house capability to buy computing hardware, optimize the computing hardware, get the computing hardware to talk to all the other hardware, from printers to servers to screens, coordinate it effectively with connectivity? No, it's strategic to my business. Without it, I certainly cannot operate. But is it core to my purpose? No, it's not core. There are loads of businesses like yourselves out there who have that as their core and strategic requirement for their existence. When I look at my business, I look to say, do I need that skill in-house, or can I partner with the right service provider to ensure that I can deliver on that basis for my team? In those instances, if I'm looking to preserve capital because the storm is particularly rough out there, then I look to outsource that through a partnership in order to release the costs that it drives in my business on a fixed basis. I'm variabilizing the cost through my relationship with my partner. The third is the outermost layer. everything non-core and everything non-strategic. I go back to it. As a data business intelligence service, do I need offices? No, I don't. They're not core to my existence. They're not strategic to my existence. That I can simply outsource. So I will find someone who owns an office, I will rent it from them, and I might even do so on a pay-per-use basis, especially now going forward. If you look at your business in terms of the inner layer, next layer, and outermost layer, it's going to help you understand what really matters, what would be nice to have, and what is not essential at all. If you look at your customers in terms of this, it helps you identify where, when you're making an offer of service and support to solve problems for them, where you need to target your messaging. Because if you target your messaging to what is absolutely core and strategic for them, they're going to find you more valuable, more helpful, and more problem solving than someone who's talking about a generalized service that they understand in their business is in the outermost layer, the least important layer. Empathetic engagement is really important. Empathy with yourself and your circumstances, empathy with your staff, but especially empathy with your customers. If you don't put yourself in my shoes and I'm a potential customer to you, and I feel you don't understand or hear me, and you don't connect and relate to my troubles, and you don't identify with what matters to me and what doesn't, because you're so busy pushing a product down my throat or promoting a service down my throat. If I feel that you don't hear and connect with me first, I cannot hear or see what it is that you're offering. Because I, as your potential customer, am only focused on my problems. And if you don't understand my problems, I'm wondering why you're even at the door. The only thing I spend money on is having problems solved. That empathy is crucial. So when you engage with your customers, you need to understand them both in a high, medium, low risk environment from a Corona perspective. The poll we've just run has effectively asked, how do you see your business? Do you categorize yourself in the red, high risk survivability of the Corona economy, the medium risk survivability, or are you safe, secure, and sound as an essential service for your clients? That would really depend on who, obviously, you're serving. The next thing you need to look at is size impacts action. Your smaller clients are straining. They are terrified for their own survival. So what does that mean when you engage with them? If you don't understand the inner core, that first layer, what's core and strategic to them, then how can you talk to them in a manner that they can see you understand their troubles, so that they open their ears, hearts, and minds to hearing how you can be of value to them? Bigger businesses have managed to carry some sort of reserves. Smaller businesses have been pushed right to the brink because of Eskom and because of the poor economy. A bigger business has more resources. A smaller business means you're going to be working with the owners of that business. The owners of that business, where are they on the Kubler-Ross curve? If they're in depression and they're seeing a wall that they're moving towards, or a cliff that they're moving towards, and they don't see a way out of it, working with them, communicating with them is fundamentally different to a same size business that sees a very positive future ahead of it. The business owner in smaller business is going to be far more emotional than the owners of very large businesses. The owners of large businesses have colleagues to work with, and they can spread the risk, the anxiety, the load. Type impacts action. Where are your customers? Are they in very deep supply chains? So if you look at the mining sector, it is a very, very deep supply chain. And what that means is that it's many, many layers deep. Yes, there's a mine. You dig the hole, you extract the resource, you refine the resource, you sell the resource. Look at all the activity involved in that. It's everything from people who make tires, who make vehicles, who construct and design plant, who implement plant, who make PPE, who make tools, who make dynamite, all the way through to everyone who then trucks the product out to ports, to shipping, to agents, establishing letters of credit in order to get the product from place A to place B, all the way through to people who beneficiate their product, as opposed to if your clients are, for example, in the retail sector, and it might be simply a sorbet nail bar or a clothing retailer. The clothing retailer imports clothing primarily, then merchandises it and sells it to the consumer. It's shallow compared to the mining sector. The extent to which you understand how many layers there are in and around either side of your client, in other words, what precedes them in terms of their suppliers and what follows them post their customers, gives you an ability to have a business conversation in order to set up a technology solution. The mindset, which I spoke about earlier, really does matter. If you're speaking to, let's say, a retail client that you have, and it's owned by an individual, and that individual is, let's say, in their mid-60s, and all these offers from government are being made and put to them in order to secure debt so that they can restart their retail trade. And leading up to it, between Eskom and the poor economy, they were already running with very thin margins. If that individual is, let's say, 65, do you think they would want to take up R1 million worth of debt, irrespective as to whether it comes in at zero interest or not, with the view to then restart when? Stage one? Stage one might be 6 months away, it might be a year away. And then they have to try and settle that debt and pay their landlord and try and trade on a very, very thin margin in an economy that has lower disposable income. The likelihood of someone like that wanting to engage in any conversation around saving their business is poor. But take that same person at the age of 38. At 38, you've still got gas in the tank. The likelihood of that person wanting to figure out how to get to the other side is going to be far higher than the former example. The empathy and the structure of how you understand empathy is absolutely crucial to succeed in a tough environment. Okay, I want to now move on to the most important piece. And it's obvious, guys. It's obvious. You guys know this better than anyone else, surely. You have to enable digital engagement. Because if you don't, how are you speaking to customers? How are you speaking to staff? The first thing is you need to be able to communicate with your staff. You know, as a business owner, you sit there worrying, I'm carrying the load of this business. What is my broader team doing? And when people ask me that question, I'm often shocked because I answer back by saying, well, what have you led them to do? And on what basis are they doing what they're doing if you've given them tasks and activities? And on what basis are you communicating with them on? The number of people who do not set up simple things, WhatsApp groups, simple things, Zoom sessions, meeting occasions, team sessions, Skype sessions. The number of folks who don't have ticketing capability in order to communicate with their teams and staff, especially in the industrial economy, left me absolutely shocked and surprised. We went into lockdown. We knew it was happening. It was already suggested a month before lockdown. Then we were given 5 days before lockdown in order to lock down 4 days. What actions have you put in place to importantly communicate with your staff on a frequent, regular basis so you can be sure they're doing what you need them to do to help you survive your business? And importantly, what activities did you capacitate your clients with so you can engage with them? How are you providing further services to collaborate effectively? I'm guessing most of you have the ability to work remotely, and I'm guessing most of you have installed software, certainly on your client sites, so you can solve their problems from a distance and through the internet. If your clients don't have that capability, the capability of communicating with their staff and the capability of communicating with their customers and suppliers, and then furthermore, to effectively have good collaboration capabilities to work with their accountants so that they can understand the performance of their business. Remember, in a storm, it's especially important for the navigation department to give the captain guidance as to where the ship is in relation to the final destination. Because that data gives you clarity, certainty, and confidence on how you need to act. Without that data, you're going to be reacting emotionally to the size of the wave appearing or the gust of the wind approaching. Enabling communication for your clients with service providers like their accountants, connecting their software to the bank so that they can get cash flow statements readily and available on a phone day to day, gives them data within which they can navigate their businesses through the storm. Those are massive opportunities within your sector. There are a couple of challenges over here. Yes, of course, client capability. You know, if all clients were very, very tech savvy, well, would they be needing you? Absolutely not. To the extent that you have gone and simply provided them with technical capability is not enough. Have you gone and further offered a service that enables them to train up on that capability themselves and improve interaction themselves? The number of clients that I have seen who've set up Zoom capabilities but have done no training and no support for their staff to effectively use Zoom, to understand how the Zoom software works, to understand the risks associated to it. So for example, we've seen clients have engagements with their clients through staff members who have simply jumped out of bed, have a messy, scrappy room behind them, or kids running about like crazy for the simple reason that they weren't informed or taught how to create and set the stage for a professional engagement across Zoom. There's so many opportunities over there. And then, of course, you've got staff capability. Staff capability within your environment should be very well sorted. Your ability to communicate with your staff using technology is certainly in play. Right, let's get down to it. I want to set the scene. I want to set strategy over here. These are the guiding principles behind the set of activities I'm going to be giving you. So remember, this is effectively what says, we've agreed we're sailing from one destination to the next, and we're very, very clear on what that destination is. On that basis, when we sail to that destination, steady seas, we have a strategy of how to get there in a more direct path and faster, because more time at sea means more risk. If the wind picks up and the waves start to rise, we might have to zigzag in order to get there. And if we hit a hurricane, we might have to reduce the sails we have up for fear that they get stripped and torn, and we might have to sail with one sail only. In other words, slow it down and move into the wave as opposed to being hit broadside by waves. So 3 strategies, and then I will talk to how you organize your team within those 3 strategies. The first one, during lockdown, red. It's about saving to reset your business. In this instance, you're going to preserve capital. It's your primary focus. Capital acts as a shock absorber. If you're traveling and you suddenly hit a pothole, something we all know in South Africa, to the extent that your car has a shock absorber, it prevents the shock of the car hitting the pothole, translating into the chassis and snapping the entire car in half. You need to have a buffer. You need a shock absorber. That is free cash, capital, in order to preserve it. Stop all costs that don't kill operations. So what are they? For example, if you have rent and you're not going to be trading from your offices, do you pay rent? Don't you pay rent? No, you don't pay the rent. The rent for that month might just be what you need in order to keep your people, which are core and strategic to your ability to function, next month. You need to look at all your operating overheads, and you need to stop all payments to those operating overheads with the view to negotiate deferred payments. Preserve your capital. You need to look at your people in the same light. Who is core, who is strategic, and then who is in layer 2 and finally layer 3. You negotiate with your people last, but you do need to look at all your costs in terms of the inner layer, the middle layer, the outer layer. And on that basis, you stop the costs that won't kill your operations. You must engage your team. Honestly, folks, I can tell you something. I've done 2 turnarounds, massive turnarounds in my life. If it weren't for the team, I would never have gotten the insight as to what could be improved, where efficiencies could be gotten, different ways of reaching customers, different ways of getting money in, different ways of negotiating with suppliers. Because the stress and the strain of a turnaround where every single month you right up against the wall creates a tremendous amount of confusion, emotion, anxiety. Having your team and speaking to your team, because they have a vested interest in your business surviving, they will bring out the best in what they have seen, lived, and experienced. And diversity of thought, even if it's a small team, is a lot more valuable than you on your own. Engage suppliers and customers. Immediately move to your customers. And those customers need to be well looked after. I'm going to talk about the different activities from a customer point of view you would do in red, amber, and green. But the engagement with customers, the engagement with suppliers needs to be ramped up during the red lockdown period. You're not doing so necessarily with the view to sell or buy. You're doing so with the view to create relationship and to learn. And then exhaust all the support that's out there. This is a site that I found. It's updated on a weekly basis. The levels of support, the definitions of support are all changing. I want to caution you that for a minute. Remember the Kubler-Ross curve? If we get through the depression and we get into the area of action, of experimentation, if you find support that really would work for your business, but you don't meet the criteria, do not allow yourself, please do not allow yourself to be upset or angry. Do not take it personally. If you're too big or too small, if you're black or white, if you're old or young, if you're in one province as opposed to another, please do not take it personally. Because the moment you do, you spur your emotion, and your emotion moves you back down into the depression of the Kubler-Ross curve. Inspired, positive, impactful action is what we're aiming at. We're looking at this opportunistically to say, what can we take advantage of? What is accessible? And what can I get my hands on in order to save, preserve my business and reset it during this period? The focus words here, save and reset. Post-lockdown amber, it's about survive and rebuild. Everything you learned in reset, where you've spoken to customers, where you've spoken to your team, where you've spoken to suppliers on how you need to create new propositions to solve the new problems that they're now experiencing, is what you will be experimenting with. In this instance, you're trading with them, testing new ways of selling, new ways of marketing, new ways of engaging. They themselves don't quite know what they themselves need, because they themselves are also trying to figure out, as the economy opens, what is their new trading environment and reality. You need to heavily digitize in order to enable social distancing strategies. The extent to which you do that, the extent to which you can prove that, is the extent to which you become from a level 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 essential service. If we can show through what we do that we have digitized not only our capabilities to deliver service, but importantly, our customers' capability for them to deliver service, then you're going to be safe right through all the levels. You must invest and drive prospecting and efficiency. There are a number of you who are on this webinar. There are many, many more of you who are not. I was asked a question yesterday from a webinar I did in the UK with our clients in the UK. But do you think it's a good time to grow? And should we be thinking about growth during lockdown? My answer was very simple. When I look at that particular business, they've got about 8,500 competitors in the UK. I asked that business owner, if you're not thinking of growth, of the 8,500 competitors you have, I promise you 10% at least are thinking about growth. When the economy starts to open in the UK, because they have a growth-orientated mindset, because they have reshaped their propositions, because they're more market ready than you would be, because you've taken the lockdown to be a pause or a holiday, it means by definition, they're going to be more relevant in the new economy and they're going to be ahead of you. If the overall economy doesn't grow, they will grow. And he said, but how? How will they grow if the overall economy doesn't grow? And I said to him, they will grow by being more relevant to your customers than you are to your customers. There's always growth opportunity and you must always be thinking of growth. When we're in the amber period, have a look and see who's out there that you've never reached before, because if you've gotten these new propositions right, you're going to find a ready market over there who has been serviced by competitors that have not bothered to actually undertake a view on doing things differently. And then you must build these into systems. I'll talk about that a bit later. Again, exhaust all support, all of it. Don't take it personally if it doesn't fit for you. This is a 6-month period. It's between now and the next 6 months that I see these activities taking place. Remember, we did the reset during the lockdown, where we spoke to our clients and customers and suppliers. We got a sense of where they were. We got a sense of how their new worlds would look like. We got a sense of how things have changed for them. During this period, truth is only found in action. We're going to implement everything we've understood in the red phase to test it iteratively in the amber phase. And then when we find our new normal, which will never be the normal we had pre-corona, it's about accelerating and reigniting your business. Over here, you want to spend more time looking for big opportunities rather than being involved in the engine room of your ship. The earlier stages was engine room work. This is bridge work on the ship. You're going to set growth targets. You're going to get access to funding because there are going to be incredible opportunities to accelerate sales. If you find through one of your clients where you have gone and repurposed your service and understood how to market it differently, and that client has taken it on board and found it extremely useful, and that client exists in a sector, meaning that that client's experience and that client's new reality is the same for that entire sector, you want to accelerate sales by marketing actively across similar clients in that sector itself. It means that the propositions you've developed, that your client has said, yes, this works for me, means it would work for other clients in that sector too. And you want to be looking for value. There will be opportunities here to acquire competitors who have not gotten it together and are flailing and failing. Remember, at this stage, you're swimming in sprint and you're looking to acquire those who are still treading water. It might be that you acquire clients of theirs. It might be that you acquire staff. It might be that you acquire agencies. There will be ready opportunities for people who have done the work between now and 6 months from now. You need to get access to funding to make that happen. So there, 3 strategies: a red strategy, an amber strategy, and a green strategy. Within each strategy, there's a set of activities that you need to engage in. That set of activities is what brings your strategy to life. In a storm, I promise you, you cannot sail alone, especially if you have ambitions to build a fairly big vessel, especially if you're competitive, and especially if you have a growth mindset. You need your team. So the first activity in building out an asset of value is what sets you apart. What distinguishes you from your 3,000-4,000 other competitors in the marketplace? Because it's certainly not skill, for they all have skill. It's certainly not product, for they all have product. It's certainly not your personality, I hope, because that means then, to the extent that you aren't there, there is no business. Is it your price? Well, I find your environment to be very price competitive. A price advantage today is not one tomorrow. Is it your service? Everyone says it's our service that sets us apart. Now, as a person who invests in businesses, I'm looking to see how that service is delivered. Because if it's delivered through your hand, well, then I see service only stays in play for as long as you are there. So if it's not product, it's not price, it's not service, it's certainly not your location, because wherever you are, you've got competitors. What could it be? From an asset of value point of view, the way you distinguish your business, the way you set yourself apart from your competitors is by understanding that you exist for one reason only, and that is to solve problems for your clients. But here's the thing. Who are your clients? If I look at a 65-year-old person and a 25-year-old person, look at those 2 individuals. Do they have similar problems? Given where they are in their lives, given what they've lived through, given what lies ahead, given the road they've traveled, do they have similar problem sets? Clearly not. Does a business in the mining supply chain have similar problems to a business in the hospitality industry? No, they don't. On a technical level, yes, they do. They need hardware, they need software, they need computing support. But if that's what you're selling, then you're arguing a product. I have a product suite to get you tech enabled. And there are 3,800, 5,000 other people offering the same proposition. So does that mean I would then acquire you what, on the basis of your price? Because getting involved in a price war or selling on price is not a sustainable model. It certainly doesn't build the free cash you need to create the dividend stream you need to demonstrate that you built an asset. So what sets you apart? In my view, what should set you apart is a commitment you make to understand that you're only valuable to the extent that you understand the problem you solve, and the experience you create around how that problem gets solved is what will distinguish you from any one of your competitors. So that means you need to narrow down, focus on who your clients are, and not try and solve computing problems for all clients across all sectors, across all size, across all locations, across all industries. The extent to which you zone in and say, I'm going to specifically focus on the supply chain, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 automotive industry and sector, means that you develop the understanding of the automotive industry, you understand the challenges that the automotive industry faces, you get a good sense of how the chain works of communication between a tier 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 provider into the automotive industry. You develop the language of the automotive industry. You understand who does the buying of your service in the automotive industry. And through that, you start to distinguish all your marketing, all your services, and all your products into a package that solves very well-defined problems that you know exist in the automotive industry through very well-crafted experiences. If you get that right, and a competitor knocks on the door to say, hey, I also have computing capabilities, software integration, connectivity, and support services. What are they selling? They're selling a commodity service and trying to compete with you, who your clients understand you to be a problem-solving service. That is the point of distinction, folks, especially in your sector, especially in your industry. Because a Dell is a Dell, Microsoft is Microsoft, a Lenovo is a Lenovo, and a Hewlett-Packard is a Hewlett-Packard. So getting that right is crucial. In the red phase, this is where you're talking to your clients. You're understanding from your clients what's changed in their world. What do they think the future looks like in their world? Because remember, what you're looking to learn over here is how are their problem sets about to change? Because to the extent that you understand the problem is the extent to which you understand how to engage and service those clients with the view to solve their problem. You should be asking your teams, your BD teams, your sales teams, to simply in lockdown be speaking to clients with a set of questions so that they can give feedback to you on how those clients understand their problems to be solved. Can you see, for example, if you've got clients across 300 different industries, it's going to be impossible to distill a clear set of problems so that you can engage clients directly into their problem sets. You need to narrow down, as hard as it is, in order to become expert on problem experiences as opposed to commodity and service. Momentum is crucial. As we move into the amber phase and in the red phase, your BD team should be looking to create databases of clients that your company has never serviced. They should be looking to engage with those owners. They should be looking to establish rapport and relationship so that as we move into the momentum phase, they can start setting up sales engagements. They should, for example, be even considering this approach, speaking to their clients with a view to understand who of the suppliers have failed them and who of the customers are failing them. Why would they be failing them? What you're looking to understand is the ability of your supplier to engage with you digitally and the ability of your customers to engage with you digitally. Because if your customer or client cannot sell to its customers or clients, because its customers or clients aren't digitally enabled, is that not an ideal selling opportunity for you to say, let me work with your suppliers, let me work with your customers, dear client, to get them digitally enabled so all of you can work together effectively. Either you're deepening in a sector or you're deepening with your clients. The fulfillment period, that's where you need to get super smart, as most of you already are, in how you provide your service and how you provide that capability. Remember, the purpose of momentum is to create leads and to convert leads, to get clients knocking on your door and then to get them into customers. If you've done this right, the distinction phase right, they're knocking on your door because your marketing message resonates with them. They can see you understand them, you identify with them in terms of the problems they have. In your engagement where you convert them to clients, that manner, that experience you provide for me says you've understood my problem, but you've also understood how I need to have my problem solved. You've understood that I'm tech savvy or not tech savvy. You've understood that I've got staff who are tech savvy or not tech savvy. You've understood everything around the experience I need to get my problem solved. Fulfillment needs to follow through on that. Fulfillment says, I'm going to deliver the service to you, aligned to the way you've understood experienced, and expected, both emotionally and physically, that service needs to be delivered. If you can get that golden thread right, where your leads generated, the leads converted, and the leads fulfilled correlate to the way that you have set yourself apart through the way you market your business, you have created a completely systematized business. That golden thread then serves to compound and grow value. If you're only targeting 2 or 3 sectors, getting this right is a 100 to 150 million rand business alone. Purposeful people. Here's my argument to you. A lot of you folks employ people who are very skilled and very talented and very difficult. It's the nature of gamers, of programmers, of hackers, of software engineers, of computer technicians. It's the nature of them. Because those kinds of folks can see a solution to every problem, and because they work with technology that lets you craft and create almost anything, and because they can see how to ramp up power through hardware, improve connectivity through software, and in effect take over the world, it's hard working with folks like that. And one of the biggest challenges you face in your sector is having rock star staff. People whom without, your business won't exist. As an investor in businesses, should I be looking to invest in your business, in other words, acquire your business, I'm looking directly at that staff and saying, who here is a threat to the existence of this business? And I would challenge you on it. The way that I look at it from an asset creation point of view is this. If you have your distinction right, where your customers value you as an entire service rather than any one individual in your business, because in you having understood me, you've gotten your marketing right, you've gotten your sales engagement right, and through fulfillment, the way you service me, because it's driven by systems, in other words, activities in a sequence that can be measured and taught, and because your people have been onboarded to implement this system that fulfills the promise you've made to me based on the position you sold me, immediately you value your people, but you're not subject to any one particular rock star. I know it's especially hard in your sector and industry, but please hear me on this. If you don't get this right in your business, then you will be working well into your 60s, 70s, and 80s. You certainly will be in a position where you are unable to sell your business for value. And 94.6% of businesses started, this is in the United States, fail to sell. They close at great cost to the owner, the family, and the staff, because they weren't built into assets. They were built really effectively into jobs. So we see the world as employing people to operate the systems to fulfill the promise that you've made to clients who have correlated and understood and connected with your service. From there, if you get this right, it releases your time. This is a green activity because this has been reshaped. This is the reshaping in red. This is the build out that you're doing in amber. And this is a green activity over here where you're looking for next level growth and opportunity. Through that, you're going to secure funding because you will be able to acquire agencies. You'll be able to acquire businesses. You'll be able to acquire customers that weren't serviced effectively during the red and amber phase. And that puts you in a position where of a day, you have created an asset that could be successfully sold. So how do you do this? Because in effect, you're breaking everything you've built pre-corona to rebuild it. It's iterative. Truth is only ever found in action. I can give you all the techniques in the world, but if you don't implement them, No amount of intellectualization or theoretical constructs or observing what other people do will ever help you do this. We are physical beings. We learn and live, largely, I'm sorry to say, through mistakes. We need to act to see what doesn't work, and we need to act to see what does work so we can double up on what does work. You need to move fast and in many small steps. These actions I'm referring to, make them simple, make them implementable in a day. Let your team test them in a day, in 2 days. Don't make them big actions that they've got to get right over a month. In a storm, you're redirecting your ship, literally wave after wave after wave. Measure to gain clarity. There is nothing more frustrating than getting emotional around what's not working. There's nothing more frustrating than getting emotional around what is working, but not understanding what exactly it is that is working. Everything you do needs to be reduced to data. The activities you ask your team to do, so for example, speak to customers, that's not an activity. The activity is, I want you to engage with our clients. And what I've done is I've organized 3 buckets of questions. Question 1 is around how they see their businesses changing post-corona. Question 2 is how they see their requirements around technology changing as a result of the change in their business around corona. Question 3 is how they see what is in the inner layer, middle layer, and outer layer with regard to their businesses based on the changes they're going to be making. That is structured engagement. That is a clear instruction that people can deploy and that is measured, because you can say, I want you to speak to 5 clients a day each. And 3 days from now, we will have a case study of 45 views against which we're going to be adjusting our propositions. Repeat it to gain confidence and take your team to gain traction. It's not something you can do alone. If you're doing this alone, you're going to get frustrated with your team, I can promise you. Put them to good work, because they themselves have value to add, they themselves need to be busy, and importantly, they themselves need to see that they are of value to you, and in that, hopefully their futures. What I can say to you is be the best you can be, folks. Prepare, then act. 3 strategies, red, amber, green, 7 activities to be deployed differently in each strategy. If you get that right and you start that process, you will build the confidence, clarity, and certainty to navigate your ship through this unpredictable storm, especially because you've got a very clear destination set. And again, I promise you, I've been in the Navy, incredibly hard to sail a big boat on your own. Take your team with you. I hope you find that valuable. I'm on time, in time, proudly to say. I'm looking at some of the questions that have come through, and I really would like to take just a moment to reflect on them with a view to engage around them. So I've answered the question around growth. Growth is not a choice. Growth is something you absolutely have to focus on. And I really want you to take a view. Please take this view. Please, I'm persuading you, I'm begging you, take a view that it doesn't matter what happens in the economy. It was so interesting, you know, yesterday, the conversation with these British businesses have really been on fire. And they've had a great economy. It has been growing at a blistering pace for the last 7-8 years, 5 years, 7-8 years, more or less that period. Also, they've got a very, very deep social net. What happened when Corona came, they immediately furloughed people. And it's a new word for us as South Africans. And what it effectively means is the British government said to British business owners, please don't fire your staff. Don't make them redundant. You know, we don't want people to be unemployed. So what we will do is decide which of your staff you won't be able to work with during the shutdown, and we will pay 80% of their salaries up to an equivalent 50,000 Rand a month, 2,500 pounds. Not bad, huh? We don't have that in South Africa. We don't have the depth of that social net at all. And for that reason, we out of necessity have to fight harder to survive. And for that reason, trust me, if you've taken a view that you're going to fight harder to get to the other side of this economy, you're working in a sector where 95% of your competitors aren't thinking that way. You get growth in South Africa, not because of the growth in the economy. You get growth in South Africa because you're outwitting, outplaying, and outperforming your competitors. You should always be thinking with the growth mindset. I want to end off by sharing a couple of resources. That's you. You're safely guarded by two enormous Dobermans, and there is a tool set that I'm going to be sharing with you. The recording of this webinar and other webinars will be available on the site. We've got webinars on how to manage your mindset, business battle plans in quite a bit of detail, how to negotiate with landlords, how to negotiate with SARS. Those two webinars in particular have got letters to support your negotiation. The SARS letter was crafted with SARS. Before I prepared for that webinar, I had a 3-hour work session with them to say that I was going to be doing these activities, these webinars, and I was going to be speaking to businesses with a view to negotiate with you, SARS. How do you feel about it? For the first hour, they were horrified. In the second hour, they warmed up. So they went from red, amber to green. And in the third hour, when they understood that the position I would be arguing would be that whatever you do, you preserve the existence of your business and the people you cut last. Everyone else gets cut before them. So whatever happens, preserve capital to keep your people, because without people, you don't exist as a business. SARS were a lot warmer to that. So in the letter, I put a whole series of negotiation options as well. People and team. I spoke extensively in 2 webinars around people and team. Number 1 was the human component of people, and number 2 was the technical structure you use to negotiate with your team. Digitization. We had over 648 people on the webinar around digitization. These are all potential clients of yours that you guys should be servicing. They were completely on the back foot around how they had prepared digitally to engage with staff and engage with customers and suppliers. And then a 3-stage strategy for 18 months. That's a webinar we'll be doing next week that you should really look out for. There are 2 books there as well. There's a book review on Sweat Scale Sell and The Upside of Down. Bruce Whitfield wrote The Upside of Down, and he talks about businesses in South Africa today that were built during its darkest hours. Sweat Scale Sell, I wrote. You really have to read it, honestly. The first story is a story of Clive. Clive has a networking business where he goes to clients, he puts in computer hardware, he connects the hardware up, he pulls wires, he creates wireless environments, he creates internet capability, and he services his clients. And when I met Clive at the time, I met him probably about 10 years ago. Clive was about 60, 61, 62 at the time. He had a staff of around 86 he had a staff of around 86 people, and really very prolific in your sector, in your industry. He was offered an acquisition opportunity for around 42 odd million Rand. And after the due diligence was done by the big listed IT company, they decided not to go ahead with it for the simple reason that Clive was the reason the business existed. It's a story really worthwhile reading because it talks to an unenviable future that you could face given the industry and sector you're in. The rest of the book talks to how to remedy the problems that Clive experienced when it came to that sell. and it talks to about 6 or 7 different businesses that were grown against the odds using the technique and mechanism I shared with you in this webinar. It really is a worthwhile read. Please tell us specific questions you want answered, and importantly, for the topics you want covered. Guys, just know this: Tarsus is open tomorrow. They're open tomorrow in order to ensure that the hardware requirements you have and support that you need will be available tomorrow. I don't believe that anyone who runs a business should be looking at public holidays or weekends during this time. That is the nature of a battle. That is the nature of sailing in a storm. When you sail in a storm, you've got to be constantly at the wheel. As I mentioned, that's Sweat Scale Sell, and there is a Corona version available on Audible. So for those of you who don't want to necessarily read, because you can get a digital version, download it on Audible. It's story told, and let me know what you think. And with that, folks, I hope that this has been useful to you. I hope you can walk away with really practical insight, stuff that you can implement today, tomorrow. And I hope certainly to see you on the other side of this economy.